We're going to go live right now to the OPP, who's holding a press conference announcing the results of a child exploitation investigation. Let's listen in.
The Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We are committed to building relationships with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in order to enhance our knowledge of the many languages and histories within Ontario and across Turtle Island. For media watching, information is available on opp.ca/news. There will be 3 individuals with formal remarks. First will be OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrique, followed by OPP Staff Sergeant Tim Brown, and then Associate Executive Director Signe Arneson of the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rob, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this important announcement about a critical issue affecting our youth. According to cybertip.ca, more than 77% of Canadian children ages 9 to 17 have access to a smartphone. This connectivity, while beneficial in many ways, also increases the exposure of our youth to potential threats and online predators. One of our most fundamental responsibilities, not only as the police, but as a society, is to protect our children from those who would do them harm. The Ontario Provincial Police led provincial strategy to protect children from sexual abuse and exploitation on the internet, known commonly as the Provincial ICE or Internet Child Exploitation Strategy, was created to protect children from online predators. With funding from the Government of Ontario, for nearly 2 decades, police officers and civilians from 27 Ontario police services have been working diligently to identify, investigate, and charge individuals participating in child sexual exploitation online. Since 2006, the Provincial ICE strategy has completed more than 82,000 investigations, leading to over 29,000 charges. Nearly 4,000 children have been identified, supported, and protected by this team throughout the years. Over the past 13 years, the strategy team has seen a staggering 191% increase in investigations. Despite investigative successes, our work is far from over. We must remain resolute in our efforts to protect children from sexual abuse. Over a mere 10 days of intensive effort, from February the 19th to the 29th, members of the Provincial ICE strategy conducted a series of investigations into online child sexual abuse material. This investigation, known as Project Aquatic, spanned nearly every corner of our province. The success of this complex and multi-jurisdictional project is a direct result of the well-established partnerships and relentless commitment of our skilled investigators, analysts, and civilian staff. With more recent enhancements from the provincial government and through collaborative efforts, we have increased our capabilities to trace and intercept these offences, demonstrating our steadfast commitment to disrupting the victimization of children online and to apprehend those intent on causing them harm. But the police cannot do this alone. No investigation will ever be as successful as the prevention of victimization in the first place. Risks to our youth can be mitigated through awareness, education, supervision, and maintaining ongoing, open, and trusting dialogue. Doing so could change the course of a child's life. I'm grateful for all of our partners, from the Canadian Centre of Child Protection to the 27 police services that participate in the Provincial ICE strategy, for their continued support and cooperation during Project Aquatic. The more we work together, the safer our children and communities will become. Thank you, merci, make wedge. I would now like to introduce Detective Staff Sergeant Tim Brown.
Thank you, Commissioner Creek. I'm OPP Detective Staff Sergeant Tim Brown, and I coordinate Ontario's provincial strategy to prevent child sexual abuse and exploitation on the internet. It's commonly known as the Provincial ICE strategy. Launched on February 19, 2024, Project Aquatic was an opportunity for officers from 27 police services to come together and to identify and stop the abuse of 34 child victims. The goal was clear: to identify victims and to apprehend individuals who make, access, and distribute child sexual abuse material. Thanks to the project team's dedication and resolve, this enforcement action resulted in 64 individuals across Ontario facing a total of 348 charges. Together, we completed 129 investigations. Our team also seized 607 digital devices. To fully grasp the significance of this, consider that the first mass-produced smartphone, introduced shortly after the launch of the Provincial ICE strategy in 2006, had a mere 8 gigabytes of storage. Today, mobile devices can accommodate as much as 1 terabyte of storage, which equates to 128 times the capacity. 1 terabyte can store up to 250,000 photos or 500 hours of video. During Project Aquatic, we apprehended a suspect who possessed multiple devices and had hard drives amounting to more than 21 terabytes of data. For every device seized, an officer or analyst examines each photo and video, which can take several weeks. The time spent on each child sexual abuse investigation only grows with a continued increase of storage. With each passing year, the tools used by predators who wish to harm our children grow more sophisticated and harder to trace. From advanced encryption to the dark web, these factors add to the complexity of police investigations. With the advent of AI-generated images, our task to differentiate between real and synthetic victims adds yet another element to our efforts in apprehending those who make, possess, access, and distribute child sexual abuse material. However, this does not deter us. With every device we analyze, every perpetrator we bring to justice, we are together disrupting the criminal activity threatening our children. In many cases, evidence of abuse is shared online and viewed by countless others. In that way, the cycle of abuse for these children continues for years or even decades. While law enforcement adapts and evolves with these changes, there are measures people can take to protect our most vulnerable. First, know that we are working tirelessly to continuously apply pressure to those who seek to harm our children. We continue to ask the public to report child exploitation to police or to cybertip.ca. Second, stay alert. Imagine how you would feel if a stranger approached your child in a park. This same level of gravity must be translated to the digital playgrounds where predators lurk under the cover of anonymity and false identities. These dangers are not confined to the shadowy corners of the internet. Predators go where children go. Third, we need a continuous and holistic approach to this societal problem. Parents, educators, children, internet providers, and entire communities must be informed and vigilant about the realities of child luring, child grooming, and the dangers posed online. Education, awareness, and strong enforcement action are the foundations for combating child sexual exploitation on the internet. Let today be a call to action. The fight against child exploitation requires more than just the efforts of law enforcement. It demands a societal pledge to safeguard our most vulnerable, our children. It calls for each of us to educate, to be aware, and to take action. Together, we can turn the tide against these heinous crimes. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Good morning. My name is Signe Arneson, and I'm the Associate Executive Director at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. I'd like to thank Commissioner Carrique and Detective Staff Sergeant Brown for the opportunity to participate in this important announcement. For the past 22 years, we have been operating cybertip.ca, Canada's national tip line to report the online sexual exploitation and abuse of children. Currently, cybertip.ca receives 2,000 to 3,000 reports per month from the public. Of the almost 30,000 reports cybertip.ca received last year alone, 23% came from those residing in Ontario. In 2017, recognizing the vast volume of child sexual abuse material online and the borderless nature of the internet, we launched Project Arachnid, a global tool to reduce the availability of child sexual abuse material and harmful abusive images of children online. Since its inception, Project Arachnid has issued over 40 million removal requests to 1,500 service providers in 100 countries. Every single day, Arachnid issues upwards of 20,000 removal notice requests to hosting providers around the world. We know that the expeditious removal of child sexual abuse material is critical for survivors' healing and to minimize ongoing re-victimization. We are proud to work with all of the policing units in Ontario under the Provincial ICE strategy and applaud the ongoing commitment of the officers working in ICE units to rescue and safeguard children from sexual abuse and exploitation. As Detective Staff Sergeant Brown noted, this issue requires a commitment from a multitude of sectors: law enforcement, governments, online platforms, educators, parents, and organizations like ours are critical in this fight, but more has to be done. Through our work, we have observed growing networks of adults with a problematic sexual interest in children. These online communities share child sexual abuse material, encourage one another to share tactics that include how-to manuals. They normalize the sexual abuse and exploitation of children. Many within these communities obsess over certain victims, try to locate them, and even stalk them well into adulthood. Environments like the dark web fester and facilitate this conduct, and AI-generated images have tipped the scale on an already epidemic-sized issue. We know that police across Canada cannot keep up, and hotlines around the world like cybertip.ca are being flooded with reports involving concerns of child sexual abuse material, as well as online sexual violence towards youth. In addition to the ongoing importance of public reporting, government action and regulation is needed if we hope to change course. We must approach the protection of children online with the same vigor we have rightfully committed to safeguarding children offline. Technology companies have wielded far too much power for profit at the expense of children, and long gone are the days of expecting companies to prioritize child safety through voluntary action. Upload prevention, expedited removal of child sexual abuse material, and proper moderation and training, among others, are equally critical elements in the fight against online exploitation and abuse of children. Project Aquatic highlights the relentless commitment of officers in the 24 agencies that rescued and safeguarded children and apprehended offenders. We also know that today's announcement reinforces that without all stakeholders contributing to the fight, the staggering numbers highlighted here today will only increase exponentially in the years to come. It is up to all of us to ensure the safety, dignity, and rights of children are prioritized to ensure that kids are protected. Thank you.
This concludes the formal portion of the media conference. At this time, members of the media are invited to ask questions to our panelists. Please include your name and media outlet in your question. You are invited to ask one question and one follow-up question. We'll start now. Do we have any questions?
Hi, Megan Fitzpatrick from CBC News. This might be for Signe. You were mentioning it's time for governments to act and potential regulatory changes are needed. Can you expand on that, please, and tell us exactly what you're looking for various levels of government to do?
Well, we're extremely encouraged by the introduction of the online harms bill. We think it's long overdue. There are elements within that we think are critical for protecting children online. So there's removal requirements that the bill talks about with child sexual abuse material and non-consensual images. You know, they have to create digital safety plans on the back end to show how they're protecting children. Upload prevention, while it's not specified, which would be if there's a child sexual abuse image that they've removed previously, it's been confirmed, well then that shouldn't be uploaded to the platform. That's one area. It's not precluded, but we'd like to see that specifically outlined a little bit more. But there are various aspects that are now putting requirements on companies to ensure that when children are intersecting and using their platforms, that they have measures to ensure their safety. So, I mean, it's in second reading, and we hope to present before committee, but we're absolutely pleased that there is going to be some responsibility, hopefully, on companies to set up their platforms properly for kids using them.
Just a follow-up for Mr. Carrick or Mr. Brown. The press release mentions an example of an undercover officer being involved in a luring investigation, I think. Can you just give us a few more examples of some of the results of the investigations, those that were arrested? Who are they? What were they doing? And were any of them in positions of power that we should be aware of? Teachers, coaches? Who are these people that are arrested? And please give us a few examples of what they were doing.
Certainly. Many of the details are obviously still before the court, so I can't get into too much detail about each of the individual cases. The case that you referred to with regards to the luring, predominantly during this project, Project Aquatic, this was what we consider to be a reactive project. So we were reacting to complaints from different electronic service providers. So services like any of the social media platforms have a duty to report certain things, and that gets reported to us. So the bulk of this project was that, in response to those sort of reactive complaints. There was the one case of luring that you referenced, and that was a case where a officer engaged covertly online and engaged with a person who wanted to meet with a child in real life for a sexual purpose. Beyond that, I can't give a lot of details about the type of conversation or who the officers were purporting to be or who that person was. But that was predominantly the shape of this project this go around. I hope that answers your question.
We've been listening to OPP officials update the media on the results of Project Aquatic. Officers from 27 services working together to identify and stop the abuse of 34 children. 64 individuals are facing a total of 348 charges, 129 investigations, and they've also seized 607 digital devices. We'll have a lot more on Project Aquatic throughout the rest of the morning and the afternoon.